Hi. It's Wednesday night. Welcome to tonight's Wonder Why show. This is going to be a great show. We are speaking with relationship therapist Anna Gold, and we are going to talk about how to bring your partner back into your relationship. Okay. Anna is going to be talking to us about, as I love the title of tonight's talk. It's like, it takes two to tango. Takes two to tango, but sometimes you need to drag your partner to the dance floor. We're going to talk about how to lovingly connect with our partners. And I love that we are doing this right at the end of summer. We've maybe had a lot of partner time, which can be great, but can also be a little bit stressful. Okay. So let me quickly introduce myself for all those people who are watching the show for the first time. I'm Tracy Sider, and I am a corrective exercise specialist for women over 40 who are stuck behind screens and who are done with their stiff, achy, stuck behind screens bodies and are ready to get in shape and be ache-free, but without the sweat, strain, or time suck of typical exercise, because who wants that? Okay. So if you're wondering why the show is called the Wonder Why show, all right, it is because this stage of our life, this 40 plus, this peri and menopause, can have you wondering like what the heck has happened to your body and what are you meant to do about it? Or if you know what to do, if you're ready to try these different approaches, if you're open to all the incredible stuff that Anna is going to be talking to us tonight about in terms of our relationships, which really do come under pressure at this age and stage, then this phase of our lives can be the most wondrous. It really, really can. Okay, so super excited. Anna, let me bring you on. Welcome. So awesome to have you with us tonight.
Thank you, Tracy. Happy to be here.
Amazing. So tell us, maybe let's start like a little bit about what kind of a relationship therapist you are, what your style is, so that people know what they are in for, and then, launch away. I'm going to pin you and you can take it away.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me here. So I'm a relationship therapist, as you said, Tracy, and my training in relationships specifically is from a style of therapy called Imago, I-M-A-G-O, Imago therapy. And my entire career, which is much longer than my Imago therapy training, over 30 years of being a therapist, pivoted about 10 years ago to a focus on relationships when I discovered Imago therapy, both for my professional life and also in my own relationship with my husband of 30 plus years also. So Imago therapy, originally written by, designed by, discovered by Harville Hendricks and Helen LaKelly Hunt, it will sort of be woven in this talk. You'll hear me reference some of the key concepts. And at its core has a tool that is incredibly accessible and useful for unpacking and concerns that exist in relationships, and in a way assimilating or somebody used a great term recently, metabolizing some of the issues that can show up in relationships, and that is dialogue. And really, dialogue at its essence is two people in conversation, but rather than talking at each other, as we tend to do after a long time of being in the same relationship, often with the same person or some version of the same person after decades perhaps, we are negotiating a time to sit face to face and having one of us be a sender of information and one of us be a receiver of information. And the intent is that we move communication that is lots of communication, but certainly communication that's of any import, any importance to this structure, so that both people feel heard, seen, understood, and valued in the relationship. So that is the key tool.
Fantastic. Thank you. I mean, I came across imago therapy a long time ago when I was in my 20s, and I found it absolutely fascinating and such an amazing way to move forward, in your relationships. So tell us a bit specifically about what we're going to be discussing tonight.
Right. So one of the things that we often come across pretty typically when doing either relationship therapy itself, or my husband and I co-facilitate workshops and retreats for couples, is this idea that one person might be quite enthusiastic. They might want to engage in what we would call a conscious process, a conscious relationship. And the other person might be, and often is, quite reluctant. And we actually have names for these people. We call them the dragger and the draggy. And so the dragger is the enthusiast. Let's go to couples therapy and let's figure this out. And the draggy is the person who says, we don't need help, or I'm not interested, or I don't feel comfortable with that, or they just ignore the question altogether. But what you're meeting with is a kind of resistance. And what I was planning to address are a few things. One is how to, as you said at some point in an introduction, lovingly invite your partner, gently, kindly invite your partner into putting their engagement into what we call the space between. So there are always three parts in a relationship. There is you, whoever you are. There is your partner, whoever they are. And then there is the space between the two of you.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And it's the space between that we want to fill with, in an ideal world, positivity. In any world, growth, opportunities for learning, discovery, and even healing. One of the key concepts in Imago is that our relationship with our long-term committed partner, or even if you're newly together, that the purpose is to help each other heal and grow. Am I learning? Am I growing? We have a long history in relationship mythology of believing that relationships are meant to be romantic, loving, lots of things. Hollywood hasn't done us any favors in this, rather than opportunities for mutual healing and growth. And that is what we want to be able to maximize through this work. And so but even knowing that, right? Even knowing that and understanding that does not necessarily mean that people are going to be like, okay, I'm all in. Right. Great, let's do some growth work. I'm in. That's not necessarily the response we're going to get from our partner.
Right. So how do you navigate approaching this with your partner? And when just even stepping back a bit, like when should we even be doing this? Like at what point of the relationship? And is it ever too late?
Well, I think that's a great question. Is it ever too late? So let me start at the end of your questions. I would say it is too late if somebody's already left. Right. So whether they've left by having an affair, that is, and affairs aren't always the end of a relationship. Affairs can be a signal, and people do work through affairs and come back into sometimes a completely new version of the relationship. So, but if somebody has really, truly divested, they're no longer engaged, they don't want to be there, they're not going to put energy into it, no matter what you try, they're saying a hard no, and or there's no energy, there's just indifference, diffidence, a lack of caring, it's kind of really flattened out, flatlined. Then no matter how much you use your resuscitation tools, if it's flatlined and there is no hope, then right. Why would you put energy into that? So yeah, not all relationships are salvageable. And I want to also say that some people do choose to live in what we would call a parallel relationship. So those are people who are saying, you know what, this is good enough. We're really good friends. We've been together a long time. We have each other's backs. We have deep connection with. our own children, or in a blended family, one another's children and each other's families and our community, and we're good enough. So there are lots of different versions of relationships that can work. What I'm addressing is the relationship really where one partner is saying, I want more. This is not enough for me. I don't feel filled up. And it only takes one. As long as one partner is saying, I want more, I'm dissatisfied, I'm frustrated, I feel resentment building. That's enough to signal, hey, I want you to join me in this journey.
Absolutely. And if anybody who's watching can resonate with that, let us know in the comments. Let us know how that is feeling for you, and what you've tried up until now. Because maybe we can move on to now some of the tips on how to invite your partner to connect more consciously.
Okay, great. Let's do that. And I just want to both normalize and validate that anxiety about either therapy or a workshop is totally legitimate. I mean, a lot of people will feel, and your partner may feel, I don't want to be put on the spot. This makes me really anxious. I don't trust that I won't be part of a triangulated kind of ganging up on story where the therapist and you are going to both tell me why I'm failing you. And that has happened and does happen in some forms of relationship therapy. It doesn't happen in imago therapy because the therapist, and this is something that you can share depending on who you seek as a therapist, you want to find a therapist who is committed to holding space for two separate people, two separate points of views, two very different people. What we want to do is gain understanding and empathy for two radically different human beings sharing the same relationship. That's why we're talking about the three entities, right? The you, the me, and the relationship.
Right.
So I think if you do your due diligence, if you're the dragger, not the draggee, and you want to do your research, you want to find a therapist who will answer some of those questions. How will you make sure it's balanced? How will you make sure that my partner does not feel victimized or attacked in some way? How will you hold space for two very different people? How do you do that? And then also reassure them, I'm not coming into this in order to complain. I'm coming into this in order to help us grow into something different. Right. I want us to co-invest. I want us to be a team. Even if we come at it from very different ways, I want us to co-invest in this together. So I think some reassurance, some real deep validation for your partner's concern or anxiety, all of those things will and can make a big difference in terms of the invitation, right? I love you. I want to be with you, or I wouldn't want to do this with you. I would be done, as we talked about earlier. What's the point? There's still enough here for me to want to do more with you. But if we don't do more, I'm fearful that I will pull further and further away.
Right. So you're saying it's about using the right language.
I think it's about the right language. I think it's about expressing the right intention about what is your purpose. Right. In long-term relationships, right? We're speaking to women who've been in relationships in some cases for a long time. We can store resentment. We can have frustrations that have been brewing for a very long time. And if we have not felt heard and acknowledged for what those are about and understood for who we are and how we're different, that resentment can tip into all kinds of, it leaks out or it volcanoes out. And now our partner is perhaps dealing with someone, depending on who we are, right? Who has either suppressed a lot of that and then maybe a bit passive aggressive, maybe throws some barbs here and there, which are deeply disconnecting, or somebody who explodes at them. And that's a signal that something needs to shift and change here. There's a lot going on below the surface, and we haven't found a way yet to navigate that together.
Right. Yeah. Any other tips for trying to engage your partner in this journey of relationship therapy?
Well, I think one of the other pieces is that the therapy, you know, and there are other things that will get in the way. We might have a cultural bias against therapy. It might feel deeply vulnerable. I think reassuring your partner that you have their back. I have your back. I have the back of our relationship, but I'll have your back. That matters a great deal. And also, if therapy in the traditional sense is simply too threatening as a beginning place, then there are books on how to do some of this that are a good starting place, a kind of gateway in. A workshop like the ones we run, that other people run all over the world, that we run in other places in the world, can be less threatening because they're psychoeducational. So you learn the tools there, but you do the work in the privacy of your relationship, not in front necessarily of other people. So there are other ways to explore your relationship. What you really want is for your partner to buy in to the idea that working on a relationship is normal. Relationships are work. They are not romantic journeys. All relationships start with either I like this person or I'm passionate about this person, some version along the continuum of that. And all relationships end up in a power struggle, what we call a power struggle, all of them. No one gets off from that. And either you will learn how to just coexist in that power struggle endlessly, in that cycle that's not very much fun, or so that's called being stuck, really. Or you can decide, how can I move this to what we call consciousness, like a conscious relationship where we figure out, how do we get out of this? So imagine saying to your partner, if we could have a relationship where both of our needs are met, where I get you in a way that you've never been got before, where I can learn to understand how I might be missing the mark. It's not just about how you're not getting it right for me. I suspect I might not be getting it right for you. And so if we can figure out how to do that together, so that on the other side of that, we can be in a connected relationship where we each know the other more deeply, or how to meet each other's needs, wouldn't that be a different experience? It doesn't mean that that's all I'm doing. I'm still going to work or grandparenting or, you know, engaging with my other community or whatever it is I'm doing. You're still living your life. But when we are together, that time is meaningful and productive and positive and nurturing. Wouldn't that be better? And fun and stimulating, maybe even sexy.
Right, because that's another big thing, right? Let's talk about how the connection is part of bringing the spark back in the relationship.
Right. Yeah. So that's another thing that can get very tired, of course, right? We're sitting in these relationships that have been a long time, and maybe in a good scenario, there was a spark at the beginning. And that spark, just so everybody knows this, could be a little spark or an enormous spark at the beginning. It's all normal. There's no rule about that.
Right. No size of spark is
too little or too big at the beginning. But what we know is that through that power struggle stage, which is supposed to happen, which we want to end, that spark can go out almost completely, if not completely. And then we add in the stuff that you work with, Tracy, around perimenopause and menopause and all of the other things that are taking place. Now we really need to figure out, oh my goodness, how do we recreate spark? What we know is that at the beginning of relationship, our brain is on drugs, really good drugs, right? That get those good dopamine receptors, and we are having some fun. You know, this is why people say to us, I spent all night on those first dates talking to my partner, and now they won't talk to me. Like, what happened there? Right. And it's because these love drugs, and I'm not going to go into the love drug talk, but we could do a whole thing just on love drugs.
Oh, let's do it.
Are active in our brains, and they change our how we feel, you know? So how do we get those going again? And some of the ways are really fun. So what we know is that if you can do something that neither of you has tried before, that might be sexual. That might be something that's consensually sexual and fun, but it might be something like, we've never tried rock climbing. Let's go do that. Or we've never gone on a hike in this area, or we've never cooked together. You're always the cook, or I'm always the cook. We've never tried a wine tasting course. Just something that is fun and different can be an entry into some of those good love drugs. Let's go to a dance club. When was the last time we danced together? Let's put on music at home and dance. When was the last time? Let's have friends over and dance. Dancing, being embodied, getting into your body, doing art, go buy a cheap canvas and throw some paint at it together. So it might be something that's just fun and playful. It also might be something that's a little bit risky, that has an element of risk, so that you have to move into having one another's backs. So my husband, Tim, and I share the story of how we went on a very long hike over a number of days. We were in Portugal, and we share this in our workshops, because what happened was we were walking from town to town, very different for us. We sort of knew where we were going to stay. He wanted to know every night where we were going to be. And so we agreed that I would find it on the day of or the day before, rather than plan months ahead. So that was our compromise. And then we just hiked, and some of it felt pretty challenging for us, and we were tired, and we had each other's backs. And that was a really wonderful trip for us. And we learned in that we could share in an adventure differently than we had before, and close off the rest of the world for most of that time and put our energy in. So that sparked love drugs. So it doesn't have to be something as elaborate as that, but it could be something that just re-energizes the space between you. And it might be that you have a hobby that you want your partner to try, and you say, come try this with me, or vice versa. And you've always said no. Well, okay, so it might not be something that you would normally do or might even like, but what if you did it because they want you to do it with them, at least once or twice?
Beautiful. I love that. Let's move on to the giver syndrome, and how this plays into the whole scenario and connecting with your partner.
Yes. So I think that it's interesting, this idea that we may have a kind of, most of us do. We come from somewhere, right? So we come from a family, we come from a culture, we come from a set of beliefs. And as part of that, for quite a number of women that I work with anyhow, there is a, put others first mentality that has maybe been modeled for us. And so that syndrome, and there's a wonderful author who also wrote Come As You Are, which is a wonderful book about women and sexuality, Emily Nagoski. That would be a great thing to share with your audience at some point. She wrote a book about women and sexuality, and has some wonderful information in there that's very rich, and also a book about burnout, which touches into this idea of giver's syndrome, or another kind of version of that is compassion fatigue. Like, I'm always feeling for others and giving to others and noticing what they need. And what about me? And if I spoke earlier about resentment, if we suppress that for long enough, then we're going to move into a place where we feel irritated or resentful. And what I want people to think about is, how can we land in a place of listening deeply to what I need? What do I need? And then sharing that with our partner in a way that is going to be received. And I want to speak about that in a moment, about how to get them to hear what it is we're trying to share. Right. So it's not just a gimme, or a grasping, or a kind of, I want more of you, more of your time, more of everything. It's a conscious way to invite your partner to really hear what it is that you're saying. And in turn, of course, they get a turn. They get to share what it is they need. So there's a kind of flow that happens. And the more that we engage in dialogue as we teach it, the more that flow starts to happen in a more natural way. So can I jump? Is it okay with you, Tracy? I'm going to jump to like the power of what I would call a soundbite of connection. For me, for us, when we are, finally coming in the door after a day of work or getting each other's attention, we might start talking at each other, but we don't know that our partner is actually listening to us. They may in fact be thinking, oh, I just can't, I got to finish up this task, or once the kids are in bed, I can't wait to do this, or we got to get so-and-so to hockey, or whatever it is that's going on.
Logistics. I call that logistics.
Right.
Logistics, right?
Right. But in the meantime, you're sharing information with each other, and you're like, you never told me that. Wait a second, I did. I told you 3 times. What are you talking about? You know? So if we can make an appointment, so to speak, hey, I have something I need you to register. I have something I want to share with you. Is now a good time? And not, it doesn't have to be a big, long period of time. It can be, this is important enough to just warrant us looking in each other's eyes. All dialogue, by the way, is eye to eye, heart to heart, not in a car. Looking at each other, which we tend to stop doing over time in relationships.
Right.
Then we have our partner's attention. Sometimes this goes back to the dragger, draggee. Sometimes our partners may be fearful that if we say, I just need 5 minutes of your time, and they give it to us, now it's unending. Oh, I've got your attention. Now it's a half hour, and it was going to be on 1 subject, but now it's on 4 subjects. And we call that a dump because we finally got our partner's attention, and thank goodness. And they're not hearing it. They're not receiving it. We're doing ourselves, our partner, and the relationship a disservice. So the work is to say, hey, I have something I want to share with you. Here's what it is. Is now a good time? Your partner, in a good case scenario, says, sure, or can we just put this aside and then do this? I just need to go do this now. And then we say to them in I language, I am feeling, or I need, or I'm hoping. And your partner in an imago world, in a dialogical world, will reflect back. You did that a moment ago, Tracy. What I think you're saying is what it is that they believe their partner is saying. And then that's it. You don't go further. Those little moments of meaningful, mindful connection with your partner make an enormous difference. It's like currency. It just can expand into a sense of I feel heard. We all long to feel heard and understood. So a little bit can go a very long way. In some ways, if we are the dragger, we want our partner to trust that we won't take advantage of the moments where they have agreed to connect in. That they can trust that we'll say, okay, this is this. Yes. Now we don't have to do that again. We don't have to go dancing 3 nights in a row. We're just going to do it tonight, and then we'll find something else to do next week. You pick.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a bit about the giver syndrome. Really, if we can learn what it is that we need and we want, and we can trust that our partner will listen, and they can trust that we won't overextend that gift, then we're going to be more likely to do that again.
Right.
Yeah. There's a key rule. I'm just going to name this key rule in relationship, which is this. You may feel as the giver that you're the one managing, you're the one organizing, you're the one doing the life admin, you're the one, I'm the one. But there is a key rule in this work, which is that we each need to take 100% of our 50%. Yeah. A relationship means you have 2 people in it. And even if one is more quiet, less likely to express, more internalized, maybe more of an introvert, they still own 100% of 50% of the dynamic of the relationship. So learning what each of you contributes in will help each of you to learn, what the value is of each person, and where to go from there. What do we do? How can we even this out a bit more? How can we see each other a bit more clearly? So 100% of 50%, that's the rule.
I love that. I think that is a very good rule of thumb, right? Not the 80-20 rule, the 100% or 50% rule. Absolutely.
Yeah. And when you talk about, Tracy, there's a long summer, where you might have had over much engagement with your partner and or your kids, right? That can be really challenging. But what if you could, next summer, when this happens again, or over the holidays, or whenever you're going to next have that intensity of time, have a soundbite of connection every day, a ritual of connection. Over coffee, we're just going to talk about our hope for the day and say one thing we love about each other. We're going to do that every day, and then the rest of the day can unfold as it unfolds. What if we could ritualize some of these moments of connection so they can become, as I said, kind of currency. They become fuel that carries us through. It's like we filled up. And now throughout the day, we feel a sense of connection and being known. So if we see our partner doing something else, going off, I'm going to say golfing, but whatever it is they might want to do, taking care of one of their parents, doing something else, we can say, oh, I know they're doing that, but I know what's going on here.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Thank you. These are just absolutely incredible. This is the second time you've come to speak to us, and I just love having you on because you really give such very practical yet deeply poignant tips, right? These are actionable and doable things that people can do that is really going to make a difference. As you say, not only in the relationship, but with yourself and with your partner and with the space in the relationship.
Yes, exactly. That's it. Exactly. Yeah. And that's what we want. We want and also Tim and I, when we're doing the workshops, we want people to have tools that they can go and use without us. Yes. So we will be there in some form or other to support, but we don't want people to become dependent. We want them to have the tools to evolve their relationship to become the relationship of their dreams. What is it that they want? And we actually, another very important piece that we encourage all couples to do, and we do, is to create a vision. So you co-create a vision of the relationship, and that might sound very woo-woo and out there, but if you think about it from a business perspective, no business thrives without a vision. What is the vision of the business? What are you trying to accomplish? What is your vision statement? And then everything that you do is going to feed back into that. That's the same for how you parent. What's your vision of yourself as a parent or a grandparent? What's your vision of yourself as a spouse or a long-term partner? And you share that with each other, and then you co-build that. And there's a very concrete tool for that as well. Yeah,
I love that. Love it, love it. Well, let people know how they can find you. Are you offering, what are your workshops for fall?
Yes, so we have a workshop. We actually have a virtual workshop this coming weekend. We have a little bit of space in that. That's Zoom. That's on Zoom like this. So that is in Eastern Standard Time, and it is this coming weekend. And we have a workshop similarly on Zoom in November. We do have a retreat in Algonquin Park, but it has only one spot left. So that one is mostly full. And then we are doing an amazing 6-day retreat in the Canary Islands in Tenerife in February, late February of 2024. All of that information, all of our workshops it's on our website, which is replenishrelationships.com, and in our Instagram and Facebook. And yes, find us through those. Oh, one other thing, Tracy, some way back, I don't know, but if people were to go back through our feed to early COVID days, we did, I think it was a 30-day kind of replenish your relationships. And there were different tips every day. And so that's all available for free on our Instagram feed. So you can go through and see, how do we connect, or how do we do this, or how do we do that? So there's lots of good stuff back a ways in our Instagram as well.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. So everyone, that is the hashtag, the @replenish relationships or replenishrelationships.com. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Always just wonderful to have you. And yeah, Happy end of summer. Definitely like fall weather here in Toronto. It's like blink, summer's gone. So, and just to confirm, your Zoom workshop, they're open to people internationally?
Absolutely. In fact, the last one we did, we had people from Spain and from the UK. We did adjust the time for that a little bit. So of course it is in Eastern Standard Time. But yes, people anywhere in the world can join our workshop. Absolutely.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming to talk to my community, because we're like back into the rhythm of things. And I think this is a great time to start thinking about, well, September's like January, right? September is your second chance to like.
Yeah, it is. It is. I was thinking
about 2023, you know.
And for many people, it is the time when we most, even more than January, do a reset.
Yes.
So how can we reset?
Yeah.
And, you know, that was a great motivation for me to want to share at this time. This is the time of reset. So it's terrific.
Amazing. And if anybody has any questions for Anna, you can put your questions on the live. I know we're live in a few places, but if you put your questions live on any of the Facebook posts, and specifically in my Facebook group, the Moving and Reshaping Club for Women Over 40, then Anna will answer that for you, as well as on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for coming.